Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about 1 in 5 food app delivery workers are assaulted on the job study. So recently I got an email from one of my subscribers. BC, thank you so much for emailing me about this and making this video possible. Now, I have made several videos on how gig worker safety is a major factor here. It is often overlooked by the people who are delivering, as well as the customers who really don't give a rip about our safety anyway. And sure, the apps say they care, but they say they care because they don't want to be sued, not because they actually care about us. So with that said, we are talking about everything that is being said in this article and in this email, how it actually is for Doordash, UberEats, and Grubhub drivers and customers, as well as any other gig app, and everything in between. Let's start with the email. Food delivery dangers. I remember arguing with support on how dangerous it was to climb ice-covered stairs and railing for a delivery. Then support suggesting the customer could come out and pick up their delivery. Yeah, if they had ice cleats and an ice axe, eventually they canceled the order only after I sent pics of how slick and dangerous it was. The customer was probably less than happy about that, but there is a good point to that. I remember doing a pickup for a diner specifically, and after I picked up the order, and it was snowed out, by the way, I remember going up the steps just fine, but when I went down, I remember slipping in such a way where my feet ended up going up and my ass went straight down from the second to the top step to the bottom ground level. Not bump, 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 bump. Strip, boom. Straight up and then straight down. And I remember it hitting my tailbone in such a way to where the impact from the pain shot right up my spine and right to my brain. Almost like one of those carnival games. You take the big mallet, you hit this little platform thing and it hits the bell. That's what it felt like in my spine. Now, of course, the people in the diner were doing everything they could to make sure I was safe so that way they don't get sued. But I wasn't planning on suing them. That wasn't really my plan. Although that is a great example of some of the dangers gig workers have on the job.
But Joe, you would be able to experience that even if you weren't a gig worker. So what's the difference?
The difference is, number one, in those who get sued, and number two, the reason you get injured in the first place. A lot of people, when it's snowy outside, they stay inside. What do? We make more money. Or at least we try to, except some customers still don't know how to tip. If you ever want to laugh, try opening up Instacart and see how many no-tip orders end up on that platform during horrendous weather. Either way, let's have a look at this article. A surprising number of food delivery workers have been hurt or assaulted while crisscrossing the city to bring people meals, a new study found. Nearly 21% of drivers reported being attacked while working for food ordering platforms such as Grubhub, Doordash, and UberEats, while 22% claimed they were seriously injured on the job, including from assaults and accidents, according to a team of CUNY researchers. Okay, well, first off, let's talk about the way they phrase that. Crisscrossing the city. That is 1 of 5 delivery workers in New York City. That is nowhere near the same thing as the entirety of the gig economy. The study that CUNY conducted was a survey of 1,650 delivery workers in New York City. That was conducted in 2021. That said, however, the number of gig workers from then to now are 2 different worlds. And this was like pandemic times where money was high and people in the roads were not as high because of the nature of how the pandemic impacted New York, compared to what it is today, where there is a lot of gig workers that are leaving New York due to the new laws that have been impacting gig workers out there and going to places like Jersey City and Westchester and Long Island because they're making less money now because of the laws they imposed upon gig workers that have innately injured the income earning potential of gig workers in New York City.
But Joe, it was because of DoorDash and Uber Eats where upfront tipping disappeared, not the state.
Yes, and because of the extra fees that they're imposing onto the customers, they had to find a way to make sure that they're not losing customers due to the overall issue argue that those customers would see a even higher price because of the tip and leave. There's only so much that customers are willing to pay if the price is too damn high. You could also argue that this is a way for them to control our income too. But either way, if you thought this was going to come out of the income of the CEO or the executives like most people are expecting it to with minimum wage increases, it's not. They're going to push the cost onto the drivers, and they're going to push the cost onto the customers and the merchants, not themselves. Workers who depended on the apps as their primary source of income were more susceptible, according to the study, which was published in April in the Journal of Urban Health. These delivery workers were 61% more likely to be injured and 36% more likely to be assaulted. And specifically from the study itself, workers fully dependent on gig work were 61% more likely to experience injury and 36% more likely to experience assault than those who do gig work as a side job. Which, duh, because we're on the road more than most people who are doing this as a side gig. And we're going to a lot more different areas, which we don't know how controlled those environments are. We don't know how the customer is choosing to regulate their place or if they're maintaining their place at all. Heck, how many houses that I've been to where crap was all over the porch or the porch lights weren't on. Meanwhile, if you deliver to an office, those offices, they have to be well maintained, which is why I'm more focused on catering delivery than just normal food delivery nowadays. But it's also the money too, so let's be realistic about that. Here's another statistic. If you're on the road more than most people who are driving, there's a higher chance of you to get into an accident. What you do is you learn from how you do your work, and you learn from your mistakes as a gig worker, and you do the smart thing and go to places that are safer in general while learning from everything you're experiencing. I feel like this is a no-brainer, but I guess not. The food delivery apps algorithms, which seek to maximize profit and worker productivity, are partly to blame because they encourage risky behavior, said lead study author Zoe Lascaris. When you're fully dependent on the app, you're more heavily influenced by those features. Lascaris, who is a research assistant professor at Queens College, told the Post. You may decide to take that delivery if you're in a snowstorm. You may decide to deliver in a neighborhood down in a sketchy alleyway where someone tries to steal your bike. Which is exactly why, as a gig worker, it's location, location, location. Why do you think a lot of gig workers, when New York City implemented those laws, decided to leave New York City and go to places like Jersey City, Westchester, Long Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, wherever? Why do you think you lost 60,000 gig workers in the span of a few months? Because the thing that was making it worth it in New York City was taken away to where you're not even getting the unspoken hazard pay, which we don't really get hazard pay, but it was a way to make it worth it in New York. To now it's not even worth it to deliver in New York. Not even close. You twisted the facts so much that Doordash took away upfront tipping, and now we're freaking leaving there to places that do have upfront tipping. Yes, it is a dangerous gig for those who are choosing to deliver in riskier areas on the apps. But now that the extra benefit of the income earning potential is no longer there, what do? We accept only the well-tipping orders in areas that are generally safe, which are likely from middle to upper middle class neighborhoods where people understand the value of our work, and we can make the most amount of money in the least amount of time in the safest possible way that way. As opposed to working in NYC where it's just not worth it anymore. The findings demonstrate a need for stronger laws to protect delivery workers and for companies, at minimum, to track their workers' injuries and fatalities, Lascaris added. Oh yeah, that's the solution. Add more regulation to a company that is working with independent contractors and not employees. Like, seriously, why is it that we're always looking to add employee solutions to independent contractor problems? homes. Can we stop doing that? Oh, this is for politics? Okay. While waiting for his next order in Midtown, delivery worker Atkana Diop, 32, said a number of his friends in the industry have been assaulted or robbed of their gear or cash. They will attack you and they will take your bike, your money, said Diop, who refused to pick up orders at night out of fear of his safety. Which is a smart thing to do. You went in an area that was unsafe, and during a period of time where most people wouldn't get caught, cops won't do a real investigation on that because cops don't do their jobs. And what ends up happening? You end up losing money because of it. The researchers' findings relied on data from 1,650 respondents to a 2021 survey commissioned by the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. Some of the survey data was later released in a 2022 report used to help determine a minimum wage for the Big Apple's roughly 60,000 plus app-based delivery workers, which, by the way, that number is significantly dropped from 122,000 in a few months of time. So this only hurt the Big Apple, not help them. Last year, the city implemented a law requiring a $17.96 hourly minimum wage for app-based delivery workers, up from in roughly $4.30 an hour excluding tips, according to 2022 GCWP report. It amazes me how they like to use these studies to manipulate the facts in the way they want it to be manipulated. Doordash does the same thing, and NYC is doing the same thing now. $4.03 an hour excluding tips. That is referring to the base pay. For most people, you're earning about 2 orders in a given hour in a lot of cases, which is probably even more than that because, again, you're on e-bike. So you could probably get more deliveries done by not dealing with the traffic. But that is excluding tips. The tips are really what made the income earning potential worth it. Swap that concept with the other concept, which is what DoorDash does, where a lot of times they misclassify the tips as what they're paying drivers. In reality, they're not paying drivers. We're receiving tips. They like to use specific facts in certain ways so that way they're making the truth different than what it actually is. Where in reality, a lot of gig workers in New York City were making 25, 30, 40 an hour with all of the income earning opportunities available in that area. Not to mention with DoorDash, UberEats, and Grubhub, you were probably not stopping for a good amount of time. The Adams administration hiked the minimum pay rate to $19.56 last month, which factors in workers' compensation costs. Spokespeople for delivery apps emphasized their driver safety as being top priority, but criticized the study as being flawed for using old data that doesn't represent the people who work for the apps. Our safety a priority. What you're doing is trying to add certain features to the app so that way you don't get sued. Let's be realistic. That's what this is all about. Like, I'm not gonna use the little blue shield to call 911. I'll call 911 myself. Now, are there other things that I'm sure don't actually apply to gig workers and really apply to package delivery or really apply to pizza delivery guys for restaurants specifically? Sure. But in a lot of cases, the same things that people experience as delivery workers for Amazon or delivery workers for Domino's is going to translate relatively well here too. Heck, with a lot of my videos talking about apartment buildings, one of the things that constantly comes up is I'm not going to risk my safety going up to an apartment to deliver the food. And I get that to a certain degree. Because if you hear all these stories and then you go into this apartment building in a sketchy neighborhood where you don't even know what you're dealing with, you are risking your safety that way. In my opinion, it's worth what you pay for it. And you pay me. There you go. Gig worker safety is not going to be something that is solely solved by the gig platforms and by the cities alone. While they do have a significant factor to that, there's not a whole lot they can do. Like, you can't use an application on a phone to help you not get robbed. I'm sorry, you just can't. Now, can DoorDash assist the law enforcement community in finding the people who stole your bike? Sure, but that also assumes that cops actually do their job and don't discriminate against gig workers like a lot of people do. What about the safety of somebody injuring themselves on somebody else's property? Well, first off, that sounds more like somebody who's living in a home who got injured on the job, so not only the company should be able to be held accountable, but the person who owns the property should be as well, so they better have insurance, and you better be able to call somebody about that. But what about you? What can you do? Well, you can make sure you're equipped with the proper things, whether it is a specific tool for self-defense, or maybe it's like a dash cam or a body cam to make sure that if something were to happen, you have video evidence of the thing happening. Are you going into locations that are naturally safe? This is an article that is based in New York City more specifically. What about somebody in Florida? Are you delivering in safer neighborhoods in Florida? Or are you delivering into the sketchiest neighborhoods where people can have their stuff stolen from their car? Which that has happened a lot. Are you choosing not to take certain delivery types, like with Uber Connect, where that is just a crime-littered opportunity? All in all, just make sure you're doing what you can to protect yourself, because nobody is going to protect you better than you are. If you guys also want to email me about something that's happening in your area or something you'd like me to go over, my email is drivenwyld@gmail.com. Feel free to email me there, and who knows, maybe you'll be shouted out in a video as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.